Now let's go back to the discussion. Medyo nawala ng kuryente kanina. As what I've been talking a while ago, yung rose petal curve is a special kind of polar coordinate, polar equation, ano? And it is usually given by r is equal to a sine b theta and a cosine b theta. So yung b natin is yung nagdedetermine kung gaano karami yung number of petals. So kung mapapansin nyo dito, when b is equal to 3, so meron siyang tatlong petals. Kapag b naman is equal to 4, meron siyang 8 petals. So that only means na if the number of petals, so syempre integral values to, kapag add yung ating number of petals, so ganun din karami yung ating, or, I mean, if yung B is odd, then ganun din karami yung number of petals. Say 5, 3, so ganun yung magiging number. Pero if it is even, let's say yung B mo is equal to 4 or 2. So basically, times 2 yung number of petals. That's why dito, kung mapansin nyo, if n is equal to 2, ito yung B, so you have a 4. So ganun yung concept natin regarding sa rose petal curve. And as you can notice, sa ating rose petal curve, there are symmetries here. You can have a symmetry on the pole. Pwede rin siyang symmetric sa pi over 2 or pwede rin siyang symmetric sa 0. So, iba't iba yung symmetry na depende rin sa if it's sine or cosine and then depende rin sa number of petals. So, usually naman kapag even, so same lang din yung nangyayari dito eh. Nag-start tayo sa 0 if it's cosine and then for sine, edi dun tayo sa medyo nag-start tayo dito sa pi over 4. So, ganun siya. And then, wala tayong value for 0 in that case. So, it depends dun sa ating mismo equation. But, malalaman nyo siya later kung para saan yung mga symmetry na yan. And then, Lima Suns. So, yung Lima Suns natin, ito yung kanyang general form of the equation. That's a plus minus b cosine of theta or a plus minus b sine theta. So, alam naman natin na pag cosine siya, so naglalay siya dito sa ating along the 0 or parang positive x-axis natin. But if it's sine, then naglalay siya sa ating pi over 2 axis. So, ito yung mga parang types ng Lima Suns natin. So, pag meron siyang inner loop, yung ratio ng A over B is less than 1. So, that is if, for example, this is 1 and then yung B mo is, let's say, 3. So, that 1/3 is less than 1. So, you should be expecting that your Lima Sun will have an inner loop. And then for A is equal to B, that is equal sila, let's say 2 plus or 2 minus 2 cosine theta. So that means na yung ratio ng A over B is equal to 1, that is being equal, diba? So you have to expect na meron kang heart-shaped or we call this the cardioid. So the next one, we also have yung ating A over B less than 2 but greater than 1. So that is a dimpled Lima Sun. Ano ba example ito? Let's say 3 over 2. So that's 1.5. So that's less than 2 but greater than 1. So yun yung dimpled Lima Sun. Kasi pag greater than 2 pa yung ratio natin ng A sa B, then we have to expect na meron tayong convex Lima Sun, which is much more like a circle na in that case. So ito, from this convex to the inner loop, so palit siya ng palit yung ratio ng A over B. So yun yung expect lang natin from convex going to the inner loop. So yun yung other type of polar equation, special polar equation, which is the Lima Suns. Okay, and then I think we also have the last one, that's the circles and the lemniscates. So yung form lang naman ng circle natin is actually medyo familiar tayo dito. That's r is equal to a cosine theta or r is equal to a sine theta. So whenever you have the cosine, you have to expect na it appears along the 0 angle, and then for your sine, it appears on the pi over 2 axis. So ganun lang naman siya, no? Usually adjacent dun sa ating pole. Now, kapag naman sinabi natin lemniscates, in general, ganito yung formula niya. R squared is equal to a squared cosine of 2 theta, or could be sine. So, pag cosine, ito yung form niya, along the 0 siya. Pero pagka sine, so dun siya along the parang 45 degrees. So, ano may pinagkaiba nito? So, usually yun lang sa lemniscates, yung kanyang orientation lang within the poles. Kasi, usually, ano lang naman yan eh, parang infinite symbol and then nababaliktad lang siya. So, depende lang din yan. So, ang mangyayari lang dyan, kapag A mo is greater, malaki yung A mo, so, syempre, lalaki itong buka nitong lemniscate natin. Pero, generally, ganito lang usually yung form na nakukuha natin kapag meron tayong certain lemniscate. Okay, and then the area in the polar coordinates is ganito siya. So, syempre, we usually consider yung F natin being continuous and non-negative on the interval A, alpha, beta, wherein yung beta natin minus alpha is also always less than 2 pi, which is greater than 0. So yung area na to na bounded by this graph, that is r is equal to f theta, between the radial lines, theta is equal to alpha and theta is equal to beta. So ibig sabihin nito, itong theta, alpha and beta natin is actually yung ating parang limits of integration. And that is the same thing that goes for this. So kailangan mo lang i-square yung r and then take d theta and then yung alpha beta, then 1/2 dito. So parang hinahanap natin yung sectoral area niya dun sa ating bounded by the region. Kaya ganyan yung naging formula niya. So you might be asking some questions. So let's read some of this. Kasi ito yung usually natatanong Why is it not allowed to simply use 0 to 2 pi? So ibig sabihin kasi nung 0 to 2 pi na yon, we're considering the whole region in the polar coordinate system. Pero kasi there are times na hindi naman nasasakop ng buong figure na yun yung 0 to 2 pi. Let's say kalahati lang yung dinraw natin. Let's say lang siya, as in hati lang. So ibig sabihin nun, hindi mo kailangan consider yung 0 to 2 pi kasi hindi siya buong hindi siya buong polar coordinate region. And sometimes kailangan nating hatiin yung ating figure kasi sa problem na rin minsan sinasabi na talaga. Actually, kaya na lang din na magbasa nito. Nasa handout naman yan. Ang mga tanong dyan is, can there be limits that are integrable with the need to subtract or add areas? So, and none. And then, is it necessary to sketch the graph? So, for beginners, it is a must. Sometimes naman kasi pag magaling na, hindi na kailangan. Pero, I would still suggest na you sketch the graph because I'll be looking for it during the computation. Why can the formula for the rectangular area be used to this kind of curves? So, yun nga, actually pwede natin i-convert. Pero kasi, sometimes, it is much more complicated to be utilizing those formula instead of applying yung ating polar coordinate system. Can all polar curves be translated to respective curves in Cartesian coordinate system? So, yan nga, yes. Okay. But it gets difficult somehow. So, ito yun, yung find the area between the... hindi pala to. So, since we're done with this, let's have yung polar coordinates. So, ito. Find the area of the Lima Sun. R is equal to 2 plus 3 sine theta. So, yun lang. Yun lang yung ating, kailangang hanapin. But remember, this Lima Sun is actually an inner loop kasi 2 over 3 is less than 1. So, knowing that this is 2 plus 3 sine theta and then Lima Sun, na may butas. So, we need to determine muna yung ating mga points na kailangan dito. Kasi, ano ba yung importance ng mga points natin or yung mga value nating theta. Kasi from this kasi kailangan nating malaman kung saan ba siya magkakaroon ng butas pagka meron tayong inner loop. And in this case, magkakaroon siya ng butas dun sa r is equal to 0. So, di ba 0 to at saka itong portion na to. So, we have to make sure na we set it equal to 0 para malaman natin kung kailan siya nakakaroon ng ng mga holes, di ba? So, from this, if we set it equal to 0, makikita natin meron 2 plus 3 sine theta and then theta is equal to negative 0.7927. So, this is at the origin. So, as we move from this point to pi over 2, so that is ito, diba? Yun yung and then going to pi over 2. So, pag ganun tayo, directed from the positive x-axis going to pi over 2. So, yun yung right side lang ng graph. And this is how it looks like. So, from that certain point, that is actually 0 to parang pi over 2. So, ito yung magiging graph natin. But, kailangan natin tong i-remove, diba? Kasi inner loop siya Pero pag tinrace natin tong graph, as in diretso lang siya. So, hindi siya talagang kasama siya, basically. So, with this, we have, diba, 1/2. And then, sabi nga natin, half lang to. So, meron siyang 2 multiplier. And then, ano ba yung, yung angle na to? So, that's negative 0.7972562. Magzi-0 yung ating r doon. So, kaya nag-0 to and going to pi over 2. So, that's 2 plus 3 sine theta. And then, ito na yung kanya magiging area, that portion. Pero, we also have to remember na we need to subtract itong portion na to, which is, saan na ba yun? Kinapila ng area dito and then sinubtract natin yung portion na negative pi over 2 to negative 0.727 and then the same equation. So, upon subtraction to that, so yun yung ating area between this curve is 25.8218. Because this is a pitfall trap that is usually experienced by students. Kasi ginagawa lang nila usually, hinahanap lang nila itong from this portion going to pi over 2 then times 2. But the thing here is that since open loop siya, so we have to make sure na hindi natin siya ina-account. Kasi ang counting nung area natin, kapag meron kayong figure, and then yung figure na yon is basically Lima Sun. So, pag nag-compute ka ng area dyan, parang kakainin niya rin yung meron ditong height inner loop. Kasi isasama niya yan. So, you have to make sure na you subtract that by taking yung area nun, which is actually the same lang naman, 2 plus 3 sin theta. But you have to make sure na that is from negative pi over 2 to 0.797. So, paano ba nalaman yung negative pi over 2? So, kailangan mo lang hanapin yung coordinates kung saan magkakaroon ng negative 1. So, yun, diba? This is negative 1. So, or negative 1 dito. So, from that kasi, naging pi over 2 yung ating equation. So, pwede rin sabihin natin na from this, yung 1 natin is also pi over 2. Okay? So, pwede nyo i-follow to and then para mas magets nyo, but I'll be also solving yung sum of this, no? So, meron tayong, ilan ba to? Ayun, meron pa ditong ano eh, sinolve. So, that's number 14. So, I think I'll be doing yung, kasi dire-diretso pala yung numbering nito. So, I'll be doing 9, 11, and then 13. Let's have muna yung number 9. Determine the area of the inner loop of 3 minus 5 cosine theta. So, inner loop lang yung hahanapin natin. Now, you can go to Desmos again and then graph it. So, ito yung maging graph na. That is Lima Sun facing at the left wherein you have an inner loop kasi 3 over 5 is actually less than 1. So, ano ba yung goal natin dito? Ang goal natin dito is we need to determine yung area on the inner loop. So, ito talaga yung hahanapin natin dyan. Okay? But, how do we determine that area? Ano? Kasi parang but yun yung hahanapin natin instead of the whole area. So, yun yung hanapin natin. Wala tayong magagawa yun yung sinabi sa problem. So, how do we determine this? Remember, yung equation na gagamitin natin is just the same. Kung ano yung binigay sa atin nun sa given, edi yun yung ating gagamitin for this case. But we have to make sure na we also incorporate kung kailan siya nagpupunta dito sa portion na to, diba? That is from 0 to 2 pi. So, you can always do something like table para mas mag-guess yung nangyayari. But basically, it starts with this 0. Kasi kung 0 tong cosine natin, we could see that that is 3 minus 5, which is actually negative 2. So, from 0, we could see na ang ating value is this portion. Okay? And then, what if it's, let's say, cosine, let's say pi over 4. So, we could have 5 cosine pi over 4, and this should give you a value that's negative 0.5355. So, in that case, that's around here. So, diba, from 0, then you tataas ka. So, that is, sabi ko nga, pi over 4. So, it's around here. Pag pi over 4, gitna yun, pi over 4. Okay? And then, sabi dito, meron kang negative 0.535. So, ito yon. And then, ano ba yung magiging intersection itong angle na to with this Lima Sun? So, that is actually this portion, diba? Negative almost, tama ba? This is 1. So, yan. Basically, that's negative 0.53. So, as we move from 0 to positive x-axis, so, alam naman natin na yung movement ng ating Lima Sun is actually papaganyan siya. Okay? And then, it moves ganito, paganyan, and then, na-draw na yung ating Lima Sun finally. So, ganun yung naging movement ng ating equation. So, ano ba yung importance nun? So, at least, in this case, malalaman natin kung ano yung mga values na kailangan nating hanapin in this case. So, we have to determine kung kailan naging negative to yung ating value, but this is 0 in that case kasi na-determine natin is like negative 2 is equal to 3 minus 5 cosine theta, and this theta gives me 0. And then, of course, kailangan kong malaman kung kailan siya nag-0. So, r is equal to 0 and then 3 minus 5 cosine theta. So, with this, I can have, let's say, 3 over 5 is equal to cosine theta. So, with this, yung theta mo is actually equal to 0.927952. So, that's 0.927952. So, from 0 going to 0.927592. So, dito siya magsisimula, and then ito na yon. So, basically, na-compute na natin tong area na to, which is actually yung 1/2 of that certain region kung saan nag-0 siya. So, from this, we can determine yung ating area of the inner portion of the Lima Sun. Okay, so utilizing the general formula for our area in the polar coordinates, so ito yun. So the area is actually equal to 1/2 times the integral of r squared d theta, diba yan yan? And then yung area natin is actually 1/2 the integral from, we have 0 to 0.927952. Okay? And then yung ating r is actually 3 minus 5 cosine theta and then square d theta. So this is your final equation. But again, ang hinahanap lang or ang designation lang nitong area na to is actually 1/2. 'Di ba? Ito lang 'yon. Kasi ito lang naman yung kinuha ko from 0 from 0 to 0.9275. So which is actually that portion lang. Kasi kailangan natin yung whole. So with this, yung area total natin is actually yung 2 times nito. So you can just remove yung 1/2 na coefficient here, and that's 0 to 0.927952. And then we have 3 minus 5 cosine theta squared and then d theta. So with this, the area gives you, so pwede nyo siyang directly integrate, and this gives you 1 point. We have to make sure na in regions kayo 1.9368 okay, square units. Okay, so ito yung kanyang area on the inside of your Lima Sun. So hopefully ay malinaw yun, kasi nakakalito tong topic na to actually, lalo pagka nasa polar coordinates na tayo. So ang kailangan nyo lang matandaan is you just have to determine kung ano ba yung portion dito na nagkakaroon tayo ng curves or nagkakaroon tayo ng area. So from this, i-trace nyo lang yung graph, and then kung saan ba siya nagsisimula, and then yun yung magiging consideration nyo for this area. Okay? And usually, we can determine yung ating mga limits of integration dito sa theta pag sinet natin yung r equal to 0 or sinet natin yung ating r equal to dito. So, yan. Pero pwede hindi nyo siya kita sa graph, no? So, ang best method dyan would be setting that equal to 0 yung r. Usually, yun yung natin lagi. By default, yun yung gagawin natin. Set mo yung r equal to 0, and then you have to determine kung saan ba siya talaga naglalay. Pero usually naman, kita naman natin siya sa graph Kita naman natin siya kasi dito sa r pa lang. Pwede natin siyang mai-graph kasi meron naman kayong graphing calculator. Okay? So let's move forward sa next number. Now we go back to number 11, and in this case, we need to solve for the smaller area bounded by pi over 3 and r is equal to 4 cosine theta. So if you go back to your Desmos, and this is the proper graph of the 4 cosine theta. But yung pi over 3, hindi kasi natin siya kayang graph dito kasi wala siyang function for that. Pero pwede naman natin siyang i-trace na lang dito. So makikita nyo dito, meron tayong 0, pi over 6, pi over 2, and this is your pi over 3. So, yun lang naman siya You just have to trace this, and then kung ano man yung graph niya through the origin or the pole, then yun yung basically lang naman ibig sabihin ng pi over 3. Okay, so yun na yun. And we need to determine yung area na smaller dito sa kanilang na bound ng dalawang yun. So, di ba ang smaller area is this one? Okay? And ito yung bigger area. So basically, this is just a circle, pero we need to determine the area of this particular portion. So again, ano ba yung gagamitin natin na equation? So we just use the same concept. A is equal to 1/2 the integral of r squared d theta. But ano ba yung ating magiging limits of integration to this? So you go back to the graph, and then you check on the behavior of the graph. So if you have 0, you start with 0, you can see that the answer is 4. So kung 0 to, and then this is 4 units, so dito mag-start. And then as you move towards the pi over 2 region, so kung mapansin nyo, gawin ko tong 0 to pi over 2. Okay? So kung mapansin nyo, ito yun, tinrace niya yung 0 going to that portion. Kaya pag 2 pi na siya, or simplify, pwede na mabuo yung ating figure, diba? So, ang goal kasi natin is mahanap natin yung bounded by pi over 3. So, you could see it from here na kung hinanap natin yung region from pi over 3, from pi over 3 going to certain value dito na magpapa-0 sa kanya, which in this case, di ba, pag 0 tong r natin, that is 0 is equal to cosine theta. What makes our cosine equal to 0? So, di ba, that's pi over 2. So, that makes sense na in this certain region, that is just pi over 3 to pi over 2. So, in that way, I can therefore say na from pi over 2 to pi over 2 to pi over 2, then that is typically my certain portion ng ating area na kailangan hanapin. So from this, we could say that the area, so pwede nyo laro-laruin to itong graphing calculator to. So we have A is equal to 1/2, and then the integral from pi over 3 to pi over 2, and that is simply for cosine of theta squared, and then d theta. Okay, so from this, your area would be equal to, so yun na lang yung atin. And then just use your calculator to determine that certain portion. So madali lang ang polar coordinates once you can visualize what happens in the graph, and you can actually simulate yung mga area na kailangan natin. The area is equal to 0.3623 square units. Okay, so this is your area for this case. So yun na yun. Oops, box natin. Okay. And I think yung nasa handout nyo is actually a different value. So, let's go back to that. So, actually dito is, ayun, iba nga siya. That's, saan ba yun? Ito, 5.9208. So, i-correct nyo na lang yan kasi hindi yan yung sagot dyan dapat. So, the answer should be this one. So, you can see it from here naman. Okay. Now, from pi over 3, we move forward to this pi over 2, and then that is your typical area. So, kung bubuuin natin siya, kung mapansin nyo, buuin ulit natin siya from 0 to pi. Okay? So, yan yung kabuuan niya, and then that's just 0.3623 of the total area. So, if you'd be asking, what is the value of your total area? So, you could just find the area or the radius of this circle, and basically yung radius lang naman yan is yung 1/2 nung kabuuan niya when cosine theta is equal to theta is equal to 0, diba? So from this, 4 divided by 2 would be equal to 2. So therefore, yung r talaga niya is 2 units, kasi kung mapapansin niyo dito, ayan 2 units siya yung radius niya. So with this, you could say na pi r squared, which is 4 pi, this gives us a 12.566 square units. So that's the total area. And this is just 0.3623 square units yung pi over 3 to pi over 2, which is actually ilang percent ba yun ang total area? That's just 2.88% ng total area. This is the 98% of that certain region that we can determine. Okay? So, pag ginawa nyo yan is 0 to pi over 3, then you're actually looking for the area from this certain region. So, ito yung hinahanap nyo pag ganyan. This one, 0 to pi over 3. And that's just almost more than one half of the total area. But, since we're dealing with the smaller region, so ito yung kanyang tamang sagot. Okay? If the question is, what is the larger region? So, what is that certain value? So, you might say that is actually equal to pi r squared. That's 4 pi minus 0.3623. So it should give you the correct value for that. Okay, so let's move forward to the next item. Evaluate the value of the area with r squared is equal to 2 sine 2 theta. So this is basically a Lima Sun. Okay, and r is equal to 1 minus cosine of 2 minus theta. And now this is not actually a special case of polar equation, and therefore intersections of the figure suggests. So meron tong figure na actually. So ito na yung figure. So one of them is at theta is equal to 1.568997. So ito na yun, 1.568997. And then the intersection is zoomed at the right. The other two are theta is equal to 3 point ito, and then another theta is this one. Find the other intersection and combine the 5 areas. So ito yung medyo matrabaho dito, no? So we based on the graph, we could say na ang 1.568997 is in radians, that's around 90 degrees. So dito yan. Ito yon, yung tinutukoy na 1.57. So, we can label this. Paano ba natin ito labelan? Kopyahin na lang siguro natin. Okay, and ito na lang yung problema natin kasi ano ba itong value nitong angle na to. So, we need to determine that a certain angle and then we can actually find the area na dun sa lahat ng ng atin. And actually, yung tanong sa number 13 is determine, find the other intersection and combine the 5 areas. So, yun pala yung tanong. So, we need to determine this particular intersection. Now, to determine the other or the last intersection, we could just set up this in terms of equating this square root of this particular function with this. So, that's square root of 2 sine 2 theta is equal to 1 minus cosine 2 minus theta. So, nilagyan ko siya ng square root kasi kung mapapansin nyo, this is just r. This is r squared. So, we have to make sure that they are in complementing with each other. And then, I can just use my calculator to find the value of theta, knowing na yung ating memory would be pi over 6. Kasi kung mapapansin nyo, kung tandaan yung location ng ating isang intersection, it is very close to pi over 6 na angle. So with this, your theta is equal to 0.326577031. So i-store ko tong value na to para meron tayong saktong sagot na maibigay. Okay? So, for this one, find the other intersection. So, ito yung theta na isang other intersection. So, we name this theta 1. Gawin natin ganyan. And then, yung theta 2 natin, so, increasing na lang tayo. So, we have 1.5686997. Yung theta 3 natin, which is the third intersection, that's 3.264958576. And then, yung theta 4 natin is equal to 3.9914287 at 28278. Okay? So, yun na yung ating mga 4 intersections. And then, we need to determine yung area for each of them. So, we need to combine all of them. So, for the first area, we could just see it from here na yung ating area is basically yung ito. Mapansin nyo dyan. We have this certain area which is just the area bounded by yung Lima Sun natin. And then, Lima Sun, lemniscate natin, and then this theta 1. Diba? So, from that, we can always use yung ating area 1 that is simply area 1. Saan ba pwede ditong kasi medyo ito na nga lang. Okay, so yung area 1 natin is sa Lima Sun. So, area 1 is equal to the 1/2, the integral from, diba this is 0, kasi nag-start siya sa 0. And then, pag 0, 0 din yung value. So, pag 0 siya, 0 din to. And then, kapag naman nag-increase tayo ng value, we could see na it goes from 0 to 0.325770131. So, kung di kayo sure, pwede nyo rin naman siyang i-graph dito sa ating graphing calculator. You can go back to Desmos and then try to have it as r squared is equal to 2 and then sine 2 theta. I think hindi pala kaya ng Desmos yung may ganun. So, you have to make sure na you square this, square root. Okay? So, ayun. Okay, so yan, okay na. Okay na tayo dyan. Kalahati lang. So, doon mo tayo sa kalahati. Kasi yung kalahati nito, I think, is negative. Sorry. Ayun, tama. So, isa positive, isa negative. So, doon mo tayo sa positive. So, from 0 going to, ano ba yung isang value natin? 0.326577. So, yun yun. Kung mapansin nyo, ito yung portion na yan, which is pag bumalik tayo dun sa figure, at this is that certain portion. Okay, so with this, the area 1 is from 0 to 0.3265, ganyan. And then, you can use yung ating equation, that's r squared. So, hindi nyo kailangang tanggalin nyo lang yung radical sign, and then yun na yun. So, that's 2 sine 2 theta and then d theta. So, with this, yung ating area 1 gives us the value of, so, susulat ko yung kabuuan para at least wala tayong ma-left out. Okay, so that is your area 1. So, this area 1 I'm talking about is this one. And then, as we move forward dun sa ating graph, kung mapansin nyo, this is your theta 1, diba? And then, as we move forward to this, and then, diba, itong portion na to, which is the area 2, so this is your area 1, itong area 2 na to is actually bounded by this, parang, the blue equation, which is yung parang pangalawa nating equation, which is not actually considered a cardioid, kasi nga, hindi siya ganong form, pero mukha lang siyang ganon. And then this certain theta. So, hindi na yung Lima Sun, or hindi na yung lemniscate, kundi ito na yung bago nating other equation, which is yun nga yung 1/2. And then, kung babalik tayo dito, medyo hindi ko pa sa ulo eh. So, that's 1 minus cosine 2 minus theta. So, 1 minus cosine, that's 1 minus cosine, and then 2 minus theta, and then you square this d theta. Okay, so determine that value. So, ang value niya is starting from this particular portion and going to that, it makes it 0. So, I think this is pi over 2, but you have to check it as well. Ano ba yung value nung magpapa-0 dito? So, I think, well, based on this equation, di pala siya pi over 2, diba? What makes this equal to 0? So, 1 minus cosine and then 2 minus theta. You set this equal to 0 so that you can determine kung ano ba itong certain particular portion here. So, from this kasi, we could say na that is 1 is equal to cosine of 2 minus theta. And taking the inverse cosine of 1, diba, that is actually 0. That is equal to cosine and then 2 minus, actually, that should be 0 is equal to 2 minus theta. With this, yung theta natin is actually equal to negative 2. Okay, so with that being said pala, that should be negative 2. What makes cosine 0 is actually 1. What makes cosine 1 is actually equal to 0, and then yun na yun, 2 minus theta. So therefore, theta is actually equal to, this is actually pala positive 2. Not really, okay, not really negative 2. So, yun. Positive 2 siya. So, that makes sense na this is 2. So, to check again kung tama yung ating limits, you can go back to the to this equation. Okay, talaga namang napaka na. So, you just have to type it. R is equal to 1 minus cosine and then 2 minus theta. So, ito yon, diba? And then, if you try to have 0 dito, yung ating 0.32657, and then, ano nga sa 2, diba? So, yun. Kita mapapansin nyo, yun. Nabuo na yung ating portion kanina from 0.3257 going to this particular value. Okay? So, ayun yung boundaries niya. So, ayun. Okay? So, well, basically, kung to siya, mapapansin nyo, yung region na binound nung ating from 0 to 2 is actually ito going, from this region going to that particular region. Now, kung babalikan natin ito, meron pa tayo actually isang intersection dito, which is actually yung around pi over 2. But, let's just leave it muna to this. Para, ito yun zinom natin to So, we have to incorporate that as well. Kasi, dun sa intersection na yun, kung mapapansin natin, if we move forward, or if we try to zoom this in, gawin natin siyang from 0 to, let's say, pi over 2 as well. So, ayan, meron pa silang certain intersection to that. Ayan, kita nyo ba yan? So, that is a very, sobrang late niya lang, pero hindi niya masyado siya nakikita. Ayan, So, from this, we have to make sure na we chop that certain portion dito sa theta 1. So, this particular region is actually hindi 2, kundi yung ating theta 2, which is actually already given here. So, with this pala, hindi natin dapat gagamitin yung 2, but this 1.5686997, because at this region, we could see naman na there is still an intersection. Kasi kung halimbawa, wala to, let's say, hindi natin siya inilagay, diba? Wala yan. So, hanggang lang siya, 0.32657. So, halimbawa, hanggang dyan lang siya. Hindi natin siya makikita, and this blue function would have been a lot easier. But sabi ko nga, since kapag nilagay natin siya, kasi buo naman yung graph natin we have pi over 2 here. Ayan, pi over 2. So, there is a point somewhere here na dapat mag-stop tayo kasi hanggang dun lang muna yung atin. So, dito tayo. Okay? So, yan. At yung portion na yan is actually given. That's around 1.52. So, yung ating limits for the blue function or this 1 minus cosine 2 minus theta, we'll be using that theta 1 and then theta 2. So, from this, mamaya na yung 2. So, hindi mo natin siya kailangan. So, from this case, we could have the integral from 1/2 and then from theta 1, that's 0.326577031 and then that is 1.5686997. Okay, and then this should give us the correct answer. Okay, so tapos na tayo dun sa second area. And remember, kung ginawa natin is yung 2, dediretso kasi tayo which is not actually included in the region na intersection ng dalawang yan. So, we have to incorporate na hanggang theta ano lang siya. Hanggang theta in theta 2. Okay? Now, let us determine yung ating area 3. And in this case, let's look at the graph again. So, kung mapansin nyo, ito yung ating area 3. And we need to determine yung portion kung saan meron tayong lemniscate and then bounded by this theta 3, which is actually the area that is bounded by, ano ba yung pinakamalapit na function na magpapazero sa ating lemniscate in this case? Diba that is actually pi? Kasi if you have sine 2 pi, that is 0. So that makes sense na you start with 0. From that, we could say that we have pi as the lower limit and then yung ating upper limit is the theta 3 that is 3.26495.876 and then our r squared is 2 sine 2 theta d theta. With this gives us the value of our third area which is actually equal to 0.015, okay, 0.015142098 square units. Okay? And then, let's proceed to the fourth area. So, yung fourth area, madali lang siya kasi you could see na itong fourth area natin is basically just the blue function which is this 1 minus cosine 2 minus theta evaluated from theta 1 to theta 3 to theta 4. So that is basically 1/2 and then yung theta 3 natin that's 3.26495. So yun. And then we have 3.9914. So yun. And then you could just write 1 minus cosine of 2 minus theta quantity squared and then the theta. So this gives us a value of 0.4207045 square units. Okay, and then finally for the fifth area, so that is area 5 is equal to the integral. So that is taken from ito naman. So we could see na ito yung bounded region niya, that is the lemniscate from this theta 4 going to that particular region kung saan magzizero siya. So, ano ba yung angle kung saan magzizero yung ating lemniscate pero going to this portion? So, diba, we could say that this is 3 pi over 2. So, therefore, we could use that 3 pi over 2 para sa kanyang upper limit. So, that's 3 pi over 2. And then, kasi pag sinubstitute yun, magzizero yan kasi sine 3 pi is equal to 0. So, that's 3.9914. Dito sa lower limit, then you just use yung ating 2 sine 2 theta for that. So, that's 2 and then sine 2 theta d theta. Okay? And this, may 1/2 pa to. So, this should give you the value that is equal to 0.43 5740718 square units. Okay, now adding all of these areas, so we have areas natin would be this one, ito 0.23, 0.015, 0.42, and then 0.43574. So if you try to add all of these areas, so you should be able to get the final area for this. So medyo matrabaho tong gawain natin, no? And this is actually equal to the total area that is equal to 1.20898. So 988767, or the area total is actually 1.2090 square units. Okay, so this is your final answer for this problem. So medyo marami tayo. Chinap natin siya into 5 areas. Hopefully nasundan niyo yung paghanap natin limit kasi ito yung medyo komplikado dito sa case na to. So again, let's just have a recap, no? So we have 5 areas kasi yun lang yung 5 regions na na-intercept ng dalawa nating functions. That's area 1, and then ganito lang ginagawa natin sa polar coordinates. Gumagamit lang tayo ng isang equation. Wala tayong subtract na equation. And then sa isang equation na ginagamit natin, kapansin niyo, isa lang yan, isa lang yan, isa lang yan. We are bounded by certain theta limits of integration that is obtained from the intersection of that two functions. So basically, ito lang yung mag-start from that origin going to that certain portion, and you shade that region from the pole going to the positive angle. So laging ganun siya. So kung ano man yung area na nag-bound, so di ba dito, this is the theta, and then ano ba tong function na to? So that's the red function, that's yung 2 sine 2 theta, the lemniscate. So yun lang yung gagamitin mo. Unlike before na we try to subtract kung meron tayong vertical strip or horizontal strip. So that's the difference between the polar coordinate system. So ganun lang siya. Okay, medyo mahirap maghanap ng theta, pero technically yung ating function is just the same, r squared d theta lang lagi gamitin natin. Okay, so I hope you can try to solve for the rest of those dito given. So ito namang let's say for example, itong sinagutan nyo itong number 10. So madali lang naman yan. Ano lang yan, lemniscate lang yan. Determine the whole area. So wala tayong problema dun sa just the limits. From 0 to pi o 0 to 2 pi kung saan kayo mas comfortable. And then this 12, larger area. So yun, hanapin nyo lang lagi yung limits of integration. So sa 14, meron dito 14. Solve for the total area indicated by the green region. So yan, kung mapapansin nyo, may green region dyan. So ang technique dito sa symmetric areas natin, kasi kung mapapansin nyo, diba, symmetric to, tsaka ito, pati ito, tsaka ito. So basically, just determine the region bounded by these 3 parts, and then you multiply it by 2. Pwede yung ganon. Kasi unlike this one, ang regions niya is actually hindi symmetric. So, I have to make sure na I compute for 5 areas. Pero kung gagawin mo dito is 6 na areas, talagang matatagalan ka dyan. You have to make sure lang na you have to, do yung parang 3 areas lang. Pero ang trick kasi dito is that hindi lang siya 3 areas. Kasi within this first area na kita nyo sa green region yan, kailangan mo pa siyang i-dissect into 2. And then this one, kailangan mo rin siyang i-dissect into 2. At saka ito. Ito is hindi lang to kundi actually 3. Okay? So, lagi kayo mag-start sa origin pag ganyan. So, with this, you can actually need to find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 areas per one, and then times 2 nun. So, you should be able to obtain the correct answer. And for this, the answer is 3.4. Ayan, so binigay ko naman A1, A2, and then A3. So, yung A1 mo dyan is actually na yan. Parang pinagsama na itong dalawang yan. So, ayun, ganun. Hopefully is ma-solve nyo kahit isa man lang dito, at least medyo gets nyo. Okay? And that ends our discussion for the area. So I hope medyo na-gets nyo siya, kasi talaga namang ito ay alam ko hindi siya ganun kadaling mag-gets kasi this is an application already of the integration. Pero magkakaroon tayo ng online class or consultation before this, so you could always ask me. Pero kung may mga question agad kayo, you can just PM me para ma-address natin, kasi mahirap pag nagpatong-patong to, kasi meron pa tayong sunod na discussion which is all about volume. So yung volume na to, iikot pa yan. So hindi lang siya area. Yung area mo, iikot natin sa certain axis of revolution. So baka mas ma-complicated lalo to. So mas complicated talaga siya. So kailangan natin ma-gets muna yung area bago tayo mag-proceed to this volume of revolution. So yun, that's all for this area. So I hope na you continue learning with this subject.